Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good day, folks. I can't see me. Where did I go to? That's better. Now I can see me. God. You know, I love talking to me. I'm the only one I can get any sense out of. Anyway, to all you folks that have tuned in to my channel, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel for any newcomers. And for me, this discussion is just going to be epic. It's going to be absolutely amazing. That's what I feel. And just to set the scene, my life is very simple now. And my life operates under two principles, all under the umbrella of integrity. Now, the first of those principles is the KISS principle. Keep it simple, sovereign. Yes, I know I've changed it, but I cast my own spells. I do not cast their spells anymore. So keep it simple, sovereign. And then the second principle that I operate under is the SUE principle. And this is something I coined about 12, 15 years ago, SUE. We are all sovereign, unique, and equal, and everything else just flows from that. So, I hope that resonates with your heart, but I seem to have this uncanny knack of reducing everything down to its most simplest format. But I'm so looking forward to reconnecting to a beautiful human being, a beautiful, vulnerable man that played such a pivotal role in my own journey back in the mid-90s. And I would like to introduce you to Claudio Silvano. That's how I know you. And before I hand over the talking stick, what I would ask from you, Claudio, my brother, is my primary area of interest is in those first 7 or 10 developmental years. For me, that's when all the damage is done, because I was born into this world as a beautiful, magical little child, wonderful child. But by the time I was 7, all that magic was beaten out of me. So, Claudio, what I would ask from you is spend a few moments introducing yourself to this growing audience, and then relate to me, or relate to the audience, how you felt as a child growing up in those early formative years. And then after that, it's like open slather. You can go where you want to. And while you're sharing your story, if I have a response or a question, I will not interrupt you. I'll just put my hand up and allow you to let me in when it's appropriate for you. So, yeah, it's all about respect, and it's all about being sovereign for me. So, Claudio, hang on, where's my bloody talking stick? Oh, this will do. This will do. Oh, I've got it. Here it is. It's the beater for my Irish drum. So you now have the talking stick. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Yeah. So first of all, it's really good to see you after all these years. And I'm not sure how long it's been, but it's been quite a while.
25 years.
Really? Oh, wow. That's a long time. That's a quarter of a century. All right, quarter of a century. Yeah? So yeah, and thank you for asking me to come on your I don't know, program, whatever you call it. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to connect with you again after all this time. So, first years, huh?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you know, I'm not going to talk about the things that I've learned since. I'm just going to tell you about what I recollect as clearly as I can. Probably the biggest thing was complete confusion. Confusion, stranger in a strange land. And that's kind of been a bit of a theme in my life as well. So, um, so I was born in Trieste in northern Italy. And when I was 2, my parents, who were kind of struggling in many different ways, it was a kind of a violent time, post-war period in Italy. Italy, of course, lost the war, so they got the rough end of the stick. But yeah, exactly. But yeah, so my parents embarked on a ship for Australia, and so I didn't have any say in that process, which is reasonable. But I found myself growing up eventually in Sydney. And I have snapshots of memories from that time, but nothing really coherent. There were a couple of experiences that left a mark on me that I remember, but then they're usually around the age of 6, and from there on. Nothing much before that, just kind of vague images and vague memories. Um, uh, my parents were lost souls. I think I've worked that out pretty quickly. And no surprise there at all. I don't know anybody whose parents are not lost souls. um, uh, they were beautiful, they were loving, and they were wounded, and they passed what they knew on to me. They passed those wounds on to me as well. So, and I was kind of very diligent. I took them on and perfected them in my life. But that came much later anyway. So apart from, yes.
Yeah, that so resonates with me, Claudio, because in my own journey, I got to the place where, God, I hate you, Mum, you're always beating me, and
I remember that, yeah.
yeah, and like, you got to love your mum, you've only got one mum, but that dichotomy was tearing my soul apart. But after conversing with my mother and telling her my story of how I felt as a child growing up, I came to the realization that, yeah, Mum was doing her very best, but she was just dumping on me what got dumped on her. Yeah, so that was an amazing realization. Sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting, mate.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's good actually, because that triggered a memory for me. So the synchronicity is working really well here.
Yes, it is.
So I can't remember how old I was, but I was probably around 7, and maybe even a little younger. I'm not sure. But anyway, we were living in Paddington at the time, I think, and Paddington wasn't a trendy suburb back in the 50s, by the way. It was full of migrants and Italians and wogs and all the rest. So it was kind of pretty rough.
Well,
But
we're all
yeah.
woke, say.
Yeah, no, I'm just using the language of the day. But anyway, I don't know why my mum liked music. My grandfather was a minor composer, and she decided to send me to piano lessons. Unfortunately, she chose a nun that didn't have the first clue on how to teach children. That's a different story anyway, but I did go to piano lessons for a while, and I didn't learn anything. But one day, as I was going to piano lessons, I met a school friend of mine, and I still remember her name. Her name was Elizabeth, and her mother owned the corner store. where we lived, sort of in the area where we lived. And anyway, she, to cut a long story short, she showed me a shortcut and to get to where I needed to go for the lessons. And then all of a sudden, we were kind of in a field behind some houses, and still remember the picture. And she said, "Hey, look," and I looked. I didn't know what I was looking at. And I turned around to find her running away. So I know, I know. So I didn't know where I was. So the only thing I could do was go back the way I'd come. And then I can't remember whether I went to school or went back home. I could not tell my mum what had happened. I remember that. And I think I invented the first lie. I made up some story that I'd fallen and hurt myself and this guy helped me or something like that. Some bullshit, 7-year-old story. And my mum, I think, was reading books about parenting and discipline at the time, and she quickly worked out, that I was fabricating something. She didn't know why, of course, and so she gave me a very methodical hiding. That was the only hiding that I remember receiving from my mum, and it was devastating. So it was devastating because yes, go on.
Yeah, I totally agree. For me, just going back to my own childhood, that moment of abandonment was so traumatic.
Yeah.
It was like the trust between my primary caregiver, my parents, and me have been broken.
Sure.
So yeah, I honor your sharing, because that is such a huge wound to carry.
Sure. Yeah.
Shut up.
It is. And for me, it felt like a betrayal. But at the same time, I couldn't work out my role in that. Why did I make up a story? Who was I protecting? Did I feel stupid because I got tricked? Was I protecting Elizabeth for some misguided, stupid reason? I don't know. No idea. But the end result was that I got a hiding, and I was betrayed by this friend, and I was betrayed by my mother. So betrayal by the feminine was the theme for that experience, and that kind of set the scene for many things to follow. But yeah, so that's one of the probably most vivid memories that I have from that period.
Yeah. Well, that so resonates with me, Claudio, because for me, I was born a magical human being into this world, and you just got to look at a child that's taking its first steps, tottering around and with its starfish fingers, and the world is a magical place, and hello, and that gets beat. That got beaten out of me because my mum was so violent. So,
Well, it sounds like your childhood was probably even more horrific than mine, because I only had that experience, there, which was kind of I could see that my mum wasn't in her body when she was doing it.
But my response to that, Claudio, is it only takes one moment.
Yeah.
It only takes one moment when you can see the look of terror in that child's eyes, and the damage is done. There are no levels of abuse.
No.
Abuse is abuse is abuse is abuse. And and that's just my understanding of the situation. But it led me to the realization that we're all victims of victims. And the best thing
Exactly right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned many years later in my practice in shamanism was that so the teachers say that your mother and your father are not your real mother and father. They are actually your siblings. You are all children of the great mother and the great father. And that was a beautiful reframe of that relationship, for me. And it opened up a level of compassion for my wounded sister and brother, my mother and father.
Yeah, yeah,
And understanding, and understanding that their story was a story of suffering and of not understanding where they were, of confusion, of being lost, etc., etc., etc. So,
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of it opens up the road to forgiveness, which is a road that is very healing.
yeah.
If it,
And my
yeah,
response to that, sorry, my response to that is when we were, physically close, living in the same house and sharing the same sweat lodge,
yeah,
I get this realization just by doing John Bradshaw's work on the Injoy.
oh yes, of course.
Yeah, yeah. I wrote a letter to Mum, just saying, "Dear Mum, this is my story. This is how I felt as a child growing up in a family, and what I thought was going to be a couple of pages ended up not being War and Peace, But I got it all out. I got it all out, and then I signed it. This is my story. Please tell me yours. Your loving son, Bob."
Wow.
And so I
Beautiful.
posted it to her back in England. And then eventually she wrote back saying, "Oh, Bobby, you must think I'm the best mother as a whole verb, but I was only doing my very best." So I wrote back and said, "Mum, this is not about blame. This is about sharing my story. Please tell me your story." So eventually she wrote back, and she was born in Germany, 1924, between the wars. Her father was an alcoholic, her mum was a control freak, her cousins were in the SS or they got shot. And so I realized that she had had a shit childhood too. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I realized that, yeah, she was just passing on to me what got dumped on her. But by sending that letter to her, which is posting that letter, was probably one of the hardest things I ever did. But I broke the multi-generational cycle of abuse. And there's a caveat to that. About 5 years later, I contacted Mum through a spiritual medium. And I'm a mechanic, so this is weird for me, and this lady shared stuff with me that only Mum and I knew. So I knew she was fair dinkum. And Mum was saying, Bobby, thank you so much for sending that letter, because I am now doing the same work with my parents in the beyond."
Wow.
And Claudio, that just blew me away, mate. That just absolutely blew me away.
Fantastic. Yeah.
All right, I'll shut up
now. Yeah. I tell you what, though, this is not a memory as such, but well, it is, but it's kind of a bit weird. You asked about the first 7 years, and I've got a very unique gift that I carry inside me, and I carried it for many, many years without knowing that it was a gift, by the way. So when I was little, I used to have a recurring nightmare. And the nightmare was that I was floating in this kind of red sea, red because it was red. It was dark red, almost like darker than blood. Yeah. And the sky was overhead, and the sky was red too, but it was a very light red. Yeah. And I was kind of floating in the sea, completely at peace, when something from the depths of the sea would come up and grab me and start to pull me down, pull me into the depths. And I would always wake up at that point, crying, of course, and in absolute terror. Many, many years later, someone came along and said casually, "Oh, that's a birth dream." And I took that information. It was like, of course it's a birth dream. What else is it going to be? It's so clear, once it's shown to you, once you're told. But as a child, I didn't think this is a birth dream. Of course I didn't think that. I was a baby, I was a little kid. And I was just so familiar with it because it came to me again and again and again and again and again. But the gift that I mentioned before was that I kind of reversed engineered. I don't know if that's the correct term for this, for a dream, but I went back into the dream and I looked at how I was before the birth. And what I saw was myself being, my awareness of being was exactly as it is now. No change whatsoever. There was no mind because there was no thought. There was no thought process. There was just awareness. And it was beautiful. So it's a memory from the womb, basically.
That's
And
awesome.
that, yeah, it is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Before all the shit started to happen, including the birth, you know, birth is not an easy thing. I think it primes us for this experience.
Yeah, what does that prompt for me? For me, going back to the Sioux principle that we're all sovereign, unique, and equal, and the KISS principle about keep it simple, sovereign. For me, going back to my childhood and reliving my childhood and feeling my childhood, because for me, thinking is the weapon of mass distraction. And the other one is thinking is the language of the mind, but feeling is the language of the soul. And I spent the best part of 20 years with my amazing intellect trying to think my way out of depression. And it was only until I could silence my mind and then go within and listen to my heart. And that is where I found all my soul, S-O-U-L, solutions within me. And from that time, you know, I am living my bliss. I am content. You know, I drink too much. I smoke too much. I exercise about as much as a koala, but I'm content with me, and and that is priceless. And what I've noticed within my, the global community is, I notice the people that really get it, the people that really get life, they just radiate this lovely aura of peace, calm, tranquility, and they glow. You know, there's no ranting, there's no pointing the finger, there's no, and yeah, and
that's right.
It's, Claudio, it's so beautiful for me to reconnect with you. And yeah, I'll shut up now, and this is your show, so
that's all right. It's an interaction as well, so it's really good. And you don't have to put your hand up. Just talk.
okay. I was just being polite, mate.
No, you were. It's fine. So yeah. So in terms of the first 7 years, that, I mean, there's a lot more, but that was the most significant thing that took place. I mean, I broke a leg once. Yeah, sure, I remember that. I remember having a lot of fun with with the crutches and learning how to run with crutches, as you do. You just kind of roll with it and you just keep going. Children are so amazing. Yeah, they just can find the joy in everything, even in kind of an apparent disaster. Anyway, so yeah, not much more to say about that. When I was 9, a big event happened, and that doesn't fall in the formative years necessarily, but it was pretty significant because my dad got sick and increasingly worse. And when I say sick, I mean mental illness. So he was psychotic and paranoid and completely undiagnosed in the 50s, you can imagine. So, so in the end, he wasn't able to work, and my mum, I guess, mainly decided to cut her losses, and we went back to Europe, and that was another gift in disguise, you know, just being uplifted and uprooted out of a culture that I thought I belonged to, and plonked back into another one and say, this is your reality now. This is your family. These are your, you know, well, I left all my friends in Sydney, so that was that. But yeah, that was a big one. Luckily, I did speak Italian because my parents spoke the dialect at home, and so, you know.
Magnifico.
Magnifico, exactly. That's right. And but you know, yeah, it was very, again, confusion and stranger in a strange land again. And just to repeat the cycle, because things always have to happen in threes, don't they? At least three. And when I turned 18, I fulfilled a vow that I made on the ship on my way out of Sydney Harbour when I was 9. And the vow was, I'm going to come back. I'm coming back here. I'm coming back home. And when I was 18, and on the day I turned 18, I went to the Australian Embassy and walked in and said, I want to go home. With a good American accent, because I could only speak with American sailors at the time. So they were my practice sounding board. I said, you're in the wrong embassy. I said, no, I want to go back to Australia. So anyway,
Yeah,
and
it's funny.
and that started a process that took me back to Oz. But even back here, everything had changed. The home that I thought in my mind that I remembered Australia was gone. It didn't exist anymore. One, because I was 18, not 9 anymore. And the perception of a 9-year-old and that of an 18-year-old are very different. And of course, Australia had changed as well. So, and the stupid thing was, people could understand me, but I couldn't understand them. I couldn't understand the Australian accent anymore. I just couldn't make sense out of it. So everybody thought I was a stupid Yank for a couple of years. Anyway, there you go.
Oh, yeah, stupid. Sorry.
No, let's put it this way. Like Dylan Moran said once, it's not that all Americans are stupid, but stupid Americans sound much more stupid than any other stupid people in the world.
Yeah, that's got my vote, man.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but that's so reminiscent of my journey to Oz, because when my family and I landed here in November '89, and my Pam and the kids went back in about January, February '90, and that was a really hard time for me because, how can I put it? I'd realised that my marriage was a sham. It was a lie. Pam and I were just living the matrix, living the magazine life. And for the 13 years that we're together, we never argued. We never shared our truth. We were just very polite to each other. But after 13 years, we'd started to snap at each other. And I could see the writing on the wall. And the one great thing that we did in early '90 was just to sit down and get real and say, look, I'm staying. If you want to go back, then you go back. And this is all the assets we've gained through our time together. You take what you want and go back. But I know that this is my heartland, and I know this is where I was meant to be. And that's why I do not own a pair of shoes. I walk this land barefoot. You know, I feel this land. And from a past life regression, I was told that in my previous existence here, I was an elder in the Northern Territory. So I'm in Queensland now, so I'm pretty close. and also in a previous existence, I was a scientist in Atlantis. Now, is it funny that I spent most of my adult life in research, and I was really good at it because I'd done it, before.
You're very good.
So life is amazing. Life is amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Give my love to Sarah, and I remember meeting her a couple of times all those years ago when you were living, I think, north of Fremantle. But we got about 4 minutes before we go to part 2. So just share what you want to share and go with the flow. And that's what I love about this thing. It's like, as a stage performer, I never wrote a song list. I just got up on stage and felt the energy and just went with it. Yeah, so go with the flow, my bro.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm silent because I'm not sure what I can say next. And so silence is the appropriate response to not knowing.
Yeah, well, for me, in my own journey, Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them in my garden for a while. But, they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden for eating from the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
Which for me says that the pursuit of knowledge is the original sin. Now, within the silence of my heart, I found a place I call my knowing, and my knowing has no words. It's a feeling. It's a feeling of immortality, indestructibility. It's my place where I connect to source, and how I do that 200 times a day is I just look up there and wink to the universe and say, when things are going good, I say, good on you, mate. And when things are not going so good, I say, okay, I hear you. I get the message. And so that's my continual and constant connection.
Meditation.
Yeah. And it's amazing. So
I love your use of the word knowing, because knowing is not of the mind. It just transcends. There are no words in knowing, but there is knowing that is just all pervasive, and it's an experience of expansion, and it's wonderful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. And I think the best thing that Eckhart Tolle ever said was, totally let go of the need to understand anything.
Spot on.
Because for me, I live in Heartspace, although I've got an amazing intellect. That for me was, and that's why I couldn't get out of depression, because I was locked in the trap of my intellect. And it wasn't until I silenced my mind that I could get into my heart and actually feel my way through, and learned that my body is so much smarter than me. It always knows what it needs to do, and all I've got to do is get out of my own bloody way.
That's it. And and that's fantastic wisdom. And sometimes it's not easy to get out of the way, and that's okay. And even that's okay. Yeah. Time must be nearly up, huh?
Yeah. Do you want to carry on for another 30 minutes?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, yeah. However long, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Right. Don't go away. I'll restart the chat.
No worries.
Within a couple of minutes. No worries, mate.
Oh, recording in progress.
Oops, sorry.
No problem.
But
No problem.
Shall I
We'll
ask,
just go.
shall I ask the question again? Or,
No, let's just continue.
okay, go with the flow, mate.
Go with the flow. Yeah, so we were just talking about all the various things that have helped me to deal with life and the furballs that life has thrown me. And I mentioned meditation, I mentioned therapy, I mentioned shamanism, sweat lodge, vision quests, ayahuasca, munaiki. And the discovery of Andean shamanism was one of the most beautiful things that came my way. And this was after you'd gone, Bob. This was 2007. And so it was a different style of shamanism. It was very gentle, very heart-centered. It wasn't macho, like, you know, some of the sweat lodges I sat in were very, you know, hard and, you know, difficult. Sweat lodge is meant to be a challenge, but oh, hang on, I'm just going to let Sai in. Hang on,
Please do.
back in a sec. Okay, I'm back.
Bring her in.
Oh, she's she's I don't know what she's doing, but this is a time for interruptions, and that's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
Life is like this, you know. It doesn't go according to our agendas necessarily. But
Living in
flow.
living in Heartspace. For me, there are no agendas, and I love the way you talked about meditation, because you know, there are so many pseudo gurus out there saying this is the way to meditate. But for my own experience, I just notice when I'm whistling, what am I doing when I'm whistling? You know, what am I doing when I'm totally in the moment? And for me, one of the biggest activities that puts me in the moment is tinkering with old engines, especially outboard motors. I'm totally blissed out doing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Your mind's happy, you're happy.
yeah,
Everybody.
yeah. And that's it. And for me, my mind is just a tool that I use when I choose, for I'm so much more than my mind. And so now I treat my mind like I treat my little puppy dog. You know, I'm a responsible parent. And so when my mind gets feisty and it needs some exercise, I just say, hello, mind. How about you go off and do some research into sonoluminescence and come back and report to me? So it goes wagging its little tail because it has attention from the master, and it comes back and reports to me. And I say, thank you, mind. You've done a great job. Here's a treat, and get back in your basket. I'll take you for another run tomorrow. And that was one of the biggest realizations that, you know,
there's a great inspiration in that.
my mind is just a tool that I use.
You know, Bob, from the moment we're born, we're put into positions where we constantly re-identify. I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. And we're always missing the mark because we think, you know, we're all these things which are really just roles that we play. I'm a son, you know, I'm a father, I'm a teacher, I'm a student, I'm whatever I am, you know. I am my mind. That's the big one, isn't it? And, you know, and we give our mind a task that was never meant to be given. The task of answering the mysteries of the universe. It's an impossible task.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Well, my response to that is, and I've been saying this since 1969, is that humanity needs to change. We need to stop worshipping science and technology and go back to worshipping creation.
Yeah.
And getting back together in community, in communities. And I've been saying that since '69. And for me, it's so true, you know, like science is, for me, science is the sickness and nature is the cure. And I've got no problem with technology where it benefits mankind,
Sure.
but where the arrogance of the scientific community says that it can improve on nature, well, for me, that's just ego. It's an absolute load of bollocks.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good one. Oh, dear.
Oh, this is so beautiful, mate.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the final thing that I want to mention, and which kind of helped me step out of any boxes that I put myself in. I don't put myself into any box anymore. I don't call myself a shaman. I'm not a shaman. I'm just a human being, you know, like you and like everybody else. And but I did get some really valuable teachings from the Andean path, because as I was starting to mention, it's a very heart-centered tradition. Not mind-centered, very heart-centered. It's not ego-centered, centric. It's heart-centric, and and these people that have lived for 500 years since the conquistadors came to South America, you know, they knew what to do. Up. The conquistadors had no interest in going up, so they left them completely alone, you know. And the result was that they maintained their tradition alive in 500 years of isolation from the West. So no missionaries, no colonialists, no interference until about 1945, 1950, something like that, when an anthropologist kind of opened the doors to that part of the world. And so their tradition is still has remained the same and hasn't been impacted by the West like many other native traditions have around the world. And one of the they have 4 different archetypes that they refer to, and they're just exquisite, you know. So the first one is serpent, and the medicine of serpent is the shedding of the skin, the letting go of the past, shedding the skin of the past, dropping it all in one go, effortlessly, because you are not your past. Yeah. And the past influences you, of course, it affects you. But the energy from the past is alive within your body, and you can work with it in the present moment and release it. The second archetype is the archetype of Jaguar, who is fearless in its environment because it has no enemies. And the teaching there is that we have no enemies. The only enemies that we have are enemies that we project outside ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
The third archetype is hummingbird, which is probably one of my favorite. And hummingbird carries the medicine of shifting your perception, of finding the gift in every situation. Every situation has a gift for you. All you have to do is unpack it. And finally, eagle, condor are the fourth archetype, as the medicine of transcending, rising above, seeing the big picture of the world from the place of mystery, and realizing that we're playing this magnificent role on this planet. And for as long as we're here, let's enjoy it.
Yeah.
Let's just be. Yeah. So anyway, that's basically the map of the Andes for living a peaceful, contented, happy, and productive life. Yeah.
Well, my response to that is why I feel so calm and so centered and so blissful. And sometimes the bliss in my life gets really hard, you know, and I need a bliss break. But I get that from just my own research into the Mayans, who predicted the birth of the internet, but they called it the birth of global consciousness. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, which is spot on for me.
Yeah.
And when I came to realize about one of the Mayan calendars, the most important one, is that the evolution of consciousness is exponential. And
yeah.
So we have just turned the corner. And so if you think life is busy right now, well, hang on tight for a wild ride, because it's it's going to get busier. But also, what gives me great comfort is their calendar plotting the evolution of consciousness, plotted the ages of the evolution of consciousness, and the last age that we have been leaving since about the 21st of December 2012 was the age of power, and we are now entering the age of integrity. And how I see that is like, hang on, get dyslexic here. Here's the age of power going out, and then here's the age of integrity, and it's coming slowly and overlapping, and we have just reached the tipping point where integrity overcomes the age of power. And wherever I look around the world, you know, I see that action manifest, because so many people are actually finding their own truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's why there's no fear here. You know, I am master and commander of my life, and I take full responsibility for this life I do create.
Sure.
So I'm flowing down the river of life, you know, but I've still got my hand on the tiller. You know, I can still go to that shore or that shore. And when I finally, it's about 2012, when I became a ship's captain.
Oh yeah.
And when I took out my first boat, I thought, "Duggar Bob, the buck stops with you. You know, you are totally responsible for the lives of the people on the ship. Everything, safety of the vessel, even the vibe on the ship." And at that time, I thought, I like this. So I adopted the ideology that, yes, I am master and commander of this life, and I take full responsibility for this life that I do create. And at that time, I thought, well, what's my life purpose? So as master, I set my life purpose to simply find my own truth. And how do I know what is my truth? Whatever resonates with my heart. So that began a process of just totally questioning everything. And then, not being arrogant, but I thought, well, as a spiritual being having a physical experience, how do I want to experience this life? So I set my own conscious life intention to be, I am, invoking the power of I am here to have a gentle, joyful, loving, healthy, and abundant life. Now that I am here is my command to the universe, but it's also my address to the universe, so it knows where to, you know, deliver my command. And Claudio, honestly, since I've done that, I'm just kicking back, you know, drinking my rum, smoking my cigarettes, because the universe is doing all the hard work for me. And it goes back to the KISS principle: keep it simple, sovereign. You know, for me, being vulnerable is just a human being being human. Yeah,
Absolutely, being real.
Yeah.
Great journey we're on.
Yeah, it's lovely, and you know, I've still got stuff I'm working on, but it's a journey.
As long as there'll be something.
Yeah, but my current mission is to I'm on a mission to eradicate suicide. Like every 40 seconds, somebody dies because of depression. They do not have to, and you know, I'm living proof of that. And so, my mission is just to share my story. And in the final analysis, and I got this from the tribal people in Australia, in the final analysis, my story, that is all I have. That's all I have. My story, my personal life experience, my witness testimony, and everything else is just opinion. Sorry, got to get smoked. So, Claudio,
Yes.
any closing comments? How can people get hold of you? I'll put all your links in the show description. And,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, nothing really. I mean, I could probably conjure something up, but I don't feel the need to. I think this has been really nice and tight, and a good.
It's been epic, mate.
Yeah, it's been great sharing with you too.
Yeah, we'd love to do it again. And I just had the feeling that in future conversations, that they don't have to be on camera.
Sure. Yeah.
We have a lot to learn from each other because I'm just a burgeoning author, and you're a seasoned author. So so something to look forward in the future. So
it is.
So I would say, in closure to anybody that's watching this, anyone whose heart has drawn them to this missive, is if you've enjoyed it, please share it widely. And if you're on my channel, you know, you all know what to do. Give it a like, subscribe, you know, watch the bloody videos. So please, if it resonates with your heart, share it. So if you like what you've seen today, share it as widely as possible. And if you didn't, keep your bloody mouth shut. See you soon, Claudio. We've got to do this again, mate.
Absolutely. See you, Bob. Take care.